Sit back. This one attacks you something real. You didn't just watch the show. You came home to it. Thursday nights, the couch, and a garage full of dreamers who felt like yours. 2 of them are gone. One got his start styling hair for the dead. And the one you're waiting for? At 18 yet, he still refuses to retire. We're taking this slow, because every face here earned their place. And the reason this show still matters? It's not the jokes. It's a quieter thing. I'll tell you at the very end. Taxi ran for 5 seasons. First on ABC, then NBC, and won 18 Emmys along the way. But no award ever explained why it stuck with us. It just did. Let's start with the man in the cage. Before we meet them again, I'd love to know one thing. Who were you sitting next to the first time Louie de Palma started yelling from that dispatcher booth? That small memory is what this channel is built on. He walked into the audition, picked up the script, threw it on the table and said, "Who wrote this?" The producers didn't throw him out. They gave him the part. That was Danny DeVito. He was years old. He stood 4'10", and from that moment on, Louie de Palma owned every scene he was in. But here's what most people don't know. Before Hollywood, before Taxi, before any of it, Danny was a hairdresser. He worked at his sister Angie's beauty salon in New Jersey, right out of high school. He was 18. No college plans, no acting dreams, just a chair and a pair of scissors. Then one of his regular clients passed away. Her family asked if he'd style her hair one last time for the funeral. He said yes. And then it happened again and again. He'd drive to the mortuary, set the curlers, apply the dry lotion, fluff the hair just right. His last audience before Hollywood was a room full of silence. He enrolled at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts just to learn makeup. But somewhere between the brushes and the stage lights, he fell in love with acting instead. Today, at Oats and Mech, Danny DeVito is still working. He played Frank Reynolds on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia for nearly 2 decades. He made his Broadway debut at Yothnas and Yurku in Arthur Miller's The Price. In March 2006, his entire Taxi cast reunited, but he wasn't the only one in that garage who left a mark. The woman who drove beside him brought something no one saw coming. She remembers every day. Not most days. Not good days. Every single day of her life since she was 11 years old. Marilu Henner played Elaine Nardo, the only consistent leading lady in that garage. A single mom driving a cab, dreaming of working in an art gallery. On screen, Elaine held everything together. Off screen, Marilu was doing the same thing. She has a condition called highly superior autobiographical memory. Only about 33 people in the world are known to have it. Give her a random date, say March 7th, 1983, and she'll tell you the day of the week, what she wore, and what happened on set. In 2010, 60 Minutes tested her on camera. She got every answer right. But the softer story is this. Both of Marilu's parents died in their 50s. She was still young. And instead of folding, she rebuilt her entire life from the ground up. Diet, exercise, everything. She wrote 9 books. She built a health empire. She turned grief into a blueprint for living longer. Her father used to say, there are 3 parts to every event: anticipation, participation, and recollection. And the greatest of these is recollection. The jazz composer Bob James, who wrote Taxi's theme song, Angela, composed a separate piece in her honor. He called it the Marilu. Today, at 74, time has only deepened her elegance. She's writing, podcasting, remembering, all of it, without pause. At the 2025 reunion, her Taxi castmates laughed when someone noted she remembered the exact date of the show's final episode, to the day. From a woman who remembers everything, to a man who made everyone forget he was ever anything but a fighter. Before he was Tony Banta, the sweet, slow-witted boxer who kept losing, Tony Danza was dangerous Tony Danza. And he wasn't acting. In Hazarina Harudiotanas Hing, his friends entered him in the New York City Golden Gloves as a joke. He wasn't laughing for long. He turned professional the next year, fighting as a middleweight. 9 wins, 3 losses, 9 knockouts, 7 of them in the first round. He was fast, he was reckless, and he was real. Then, one afternoon, a producer walked into the gym where Danza was training, watched him spar, and said, "I've got a part for you." That part was Tony Banta, the boxer who couldn't win. And the irony is, the real Tony Danza almost never lost. He kept boxing during Taxi's first 2 seasons, scoring knockouts between tapings. Eventually, he put down the gloves and picked up a different kind of fight. 8 seasons of Who's the Boss, a Broadway career, a stint teaching 10th grade English in Philadelphia that became a book and a TV show. Today, at Yotanas and Hing, he still carries the same spark we remember. He's touring the country with a cabaret show called Standards and Stories, singing Sinatra, telling tales, tap dancing in small theaters. In April Hirtos Advaits, he's starring in a new play called Broken Snow. He once said about Taxi, "It's almost like a temple. It was so great to work there." He was discovered at a boxing gym. The next face? She walked in through a completely different door. Think about it. When this show first aired, you were, what, in your 20s? Maybe your 30s? Think about where you were sitting, what your life looked like. And now look at where you are. She arrived later than the others, but the moment she opened her mouth, you couldn't look away. Carol Kane joined Taxi and tells an Ina Hudsoon as Simka, Latka's wife. Her voice was high and strange and warm, like a music box from a country that doesn't exist. She matched Andy Kaufman's chaos beat for beat. They didn't rehearse the same way. She was theater trained, he was pure instinct. And somehow that made them the most believable married couple on television. She won 2 Emmys for Simka. 2. But here's something almost no one talks about. When Andy Kaufman was laid to rest in May of 1984, Carol Kane was the only member of the Taxi cast who was there. The only one. Today, at Yotanas and Yurek, she's still working. She played Madame Morrible in Wicked on Broadway for nearly a decade. She was Lillian on Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. Right now, she's playing Chief Engineer Pelia on Star Trek Strange New Worlds. And the writers said the fact that she'd never seen a single episode of the original series actually made her performance better. She still lives on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, in the same neighborhood where she bought her first studio apartment for $25,000 in the 70s. She was the only one who said goodbye. But the man who built that show, the one they all leaned on, almost never showed up at all. If you've been watching this far, I think you already feel it. This show was more than a sitcom. So if Taxi meant something to you, If it reminds you of someone, tell me in the comments. I read every single one. And those stories, yours, not mine, are the reason I keep making these. He was Karasunyerek when he first sat behind that wheel. He's Innocent Mech now. Judd Hirsch played Alex Reiger, the philosopher cabbie, the guy who listened when no one else would, the calm sinner in a room full of noise. But Judd Hirsch never planned to be an actor. He studied physics at City College of New York, served in the Army, worked as an engineer at Westinghouse. He was building circuits, not characters. When he finally decided to try acting, he was already in his 30s. By the time Taxi came along, he was 43, and he didn't want the job. He told his agent to make outrageous demands, certain the producers would say no. They said yes to every single one. They even put his name above the title. He was terrified his castmates would resent him for it. They never did. He won 2 Emmys for Alex Reiger. Then he won 2 Tony Awards on Broadway. Then he was nominated for an Oscar for Ordinary People. Then, 42 years later, at the age of Utzon Youth, he was nominated again for Steven Spielberg's The Fabelmans. The longest gap between Oscar nominations in Academy history. Today, at 1904, Judd Hirsch wears every year beautifully. He still works in theater. At the 23rd Taxi reunion, he stood beside the cast, the oldest, the quietest, and the one they all lean on. You and I, we didn't just watch these stories. We lived alongside them. Every cast has a dreamer. Someone who believes, really believes, that tomorrow is going to be different. On Taxi, that was Bobby Wheeler. Jeff Conaway played him with a grin that made you root for him even when you knew the audition wasn't going to go his way. Bobby wanted to be an actor. He wanted it so badly you could feel it through the screen. What most people forget is that Jeff Conaway had already lived that dream and lost it. He played Danny Zuko on Broadway in the original Grease, the lead, the star. But when the movie was made, his friend John Travolta got the role. Jeff was cast as Kaniki instead. During filming, he had to walk slightly stooped in every scene so Travolta would appear taller on camera. He hurt his back during the greased lightning sequence. That injury followed him for years. After stepping away from the spotlight, Jeff found a second life on screen with a role he loved, Zach Allen in the science fiction series Babylon 5. He walked onto that set because he'd seen the show on TV and admired it so much he just showed up at the studio. They gave him a brief appearance. It grew into a regular role. Jeff Conaway left us in Yirkuhazar Tasnamek at the age of Watson. Shortly before, his Grease co-star John Travolta had offered to help him get back on his feet. He was Bobby Wheeler until the end, still reaching, still believing tomorrow would be different. Some of the people we watch this with aren't here anymore. And some of us have become the age our parents were when they first told us to turn the volume down. She was the only cast member who showed up that day. The day they said goodbye to someone none of them were ready to lose. Now, let's talk about the man she came to honor. We're getting close to the end now. If this has brought back a face you haven't thought about in a while, someone you used to watch this show with, I'd love to hear their name. Drop it in the comments. Not for me, for them. Was he a comedian? A performance artist? Or something we still don't have a word for? Andy Kaufman played Latka-Gravas, the mechanic from a country no one could name, speaking a language no one could place. Audiences adored Latka. But Andy Kaufman? He wasn't interested in being adored. He was interested in being unpredictable. Before he signed his contract, he made 2 demands. He wanted 2 studio parking spaces, one for himself and one for Tony Clifton, his fictional alter ego. He also insisted on working only 2 days a week, Tuesdays for rehearsals, Fridays for tapings. The producers agreed to all of it. Because here's the thing most people never understood. Andy Kaufman didn't take the taxi job because he wanted to be on TV. He took it because the money let him do the things he actually cared about. The strange, beautiful, confusing performances that nobody else would fund. The wrestling matches. The Carnegie Hall show where he invited 2,800 strangers out for milk and cookies afterward. Taxi was his day job. Everything else was his life. He was a lifelong non-smoker. He meditated 3 hours a day. In January 1984, he was diagnosed with a rare form of lung cancer. 4 months later, he was gone. He was 35. His co-star Danny DeVito later produced the film Man on the Moon, Jim Carrey's portrait of Andy's life. The band REM wrote a song with the same name. And every few years, someone still asks, did he really leave? Or is this all part of the act? He left. But the questions he planted in us never did. Close your eyes for a second. Can you still hear that piano? That slow, sad little melody that played over those yellow cabs at night. That sound is not just a theme song. That's a time machine. What does a yellow light mean? If you just smiled, you already know who this is. Christopher Lloyd played Reverend Jim Ignatowski, the burned-out hippie who wandered into the Sunshine Cab Company and never quite wandered out. He wasn't supposed to stay. Jim was a guest character in Helsernausen 2, 1 episode, but the audience wouldn't let him go. The producers brought him back as a main cast member the following season, and he stayed until the final curtain. That driver's test scene, "What does a yellow light mean?" is still considered one of the greatest moments in sitcom history. Lloyd won 2 Emmys for Jim Ignatowski, but what he did next made him something bigger. In Hazar Inharud Utsun Hing, he stepped into a DeLorean and became Doc Brown. Back to the Future turned him into a global icon. Then came Judge Doom in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Uncle Fester in The Addams Family, Commander Krug in Star Trek. Role after role after role, each one stranger, louder, more alive than the last. But here's what makes Christopher Lloyd different from almost anyone else in this story. He comes from a world that had nothing to do with Hollywood. His maternal grandfather co-founded the Texaco Oil Company. He's a descendant of a Mayflower passenger. He grew up with wealth most actors only dream of. And he chose the stage. He apprenticed at summer theaters. He studied with Sanford Meisner. He was a replacement in his first New York production. He earned every room he ever walked into. Today, at Oatsen Christopher Lloyd has approximately 235 credits to his name. He was nominated for an Emmy in 2016, his first in 30 years, for a guest role on Hacks. He appeared in Wednesday on Netflix. He's reprising his role in Nobody. He's attending comic conventions in Hong Kong and Nashville. In a Forbes interview, he said, "Retirement is not in my vocabulary. I'll just keep going." He radiates the same warmth decades later. He chose this life at 19, And 68 years later, he keeps choosing it. That's the one you were waiting for. That's the answer to the promise I made at the beginning. At Utseenjold, he still refuses to retire. And we're all better for it. But we can't close this story without honoring the hearts we lost along the way. Andy Kaufman gave us Latka, the sweetest stranger who ever walked into a room full of cynics and made them smile. He left us in Hazard Inneharder Utseenchors at just Jedesen Hing. Every time we press play, that grin comes back, that voice, that language only he could speak. Jeff Conaway gave us Bobby Wheeler, the dreamer who never stopped reaching. He left us in 2020 at 13. He walked slightly stooped through one of the biggest movies ever made so someone else could stand taller, and he never complained. They may have left this world, but every time we press play, they come back to life. So here we are, 8 faces, 1 garage, a cab company that paid minimum wage and gave us something no amount of money could buy. Remember that piano? The one that played over the bridge at night? Some of those notes are still in your living room, in the couch cushions, in the silence after the TV turned off. Remember the quieter thing I promised? Here it is. We didn't know it then, but every time we turned on that show, we were saving something. A version of ourselves. Younger, less tired, sitting somewhere safe. That's what the show gave us. Not just a laugh, but a place to keep. If you could go back in time to the exact living room where you first watched Taxi, who would be sitting next to you on that couch one more time? If this story stayed with you, there's another one waiting. And if you haven't yet, I'd love to have you with me for it. The memories are still there. I'll meet you in them next time.